Forward entry, number 17, coming down through the Bridgestone S's, now onto the bowl. Fury closes up. And Johnson looking very relaxed behind the wheel as they now work Yokohama straight. Perkins will lead it. We'll see whether or not Dick's Turbo Sierra can get the best of the V8 the next time that they hit the front straight. Coming out of the bend now. Onto the start finishing straight. Perkins just there. Johnson sits in for the draft. Fury trying to catch up and go with Johnson. Johnson eager to jump out of the draft already and looks for the inside run. Perkins holds his position on the racetrack, and here comes Johnson.
Oh, he's lost the rear wing or something. He's come off the Sierra.
The rear wing has come off the back of the Sierra. We'll see how much that will play with Johnson's machine, because Perkins gets it a little sideways as they go through there. No, wing is still in straight. Could be a little of the bumper. Who knows? We'll find that out a little later. Perkins, though, making life somewhat difficult for Nick Johnson. But we have a good race going with Perkins, the pace setter, since lap number 1. Johnson sitting in very close behind him. Back behind them, obviously, is Georgie Fury. In car number 30, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Onto the Yokohama, back straight. The run down through the Super Bowl at Adelaide International Raceway. Once again, expect Johnson to pull out of the draft the next time they get about halfway down this long front straight. There's an official running across the circuit. I don't think it was anything off Johnson's car. Maybe it was something that was left on the track. Here comes Johnson, down on the inside this time of Larry Perkins. And they are side by side at this stage. Perkins will go in deeper and try and head Johnson off into the turn. He just hasn't got enough to be able to get there ahead of Perkins, and Perkins is doing one heck of a job.
I think you're right. I don't think anything's come off the car. I've had a good look around it and it appears to be intact, so something must have been laying on the track. And there was a double yellow flag out down there. Larry Perkins and Nick Johnson, they were teammates a couple of years ago. They both got a lot of respect for each other. And a fascinating battle between, believe it or not, General Motors and Ford. And that's been the case over many years in Australian Touring Car Championship racing. As Denny Holm pits, and there's the bits and pieces of fiberglass on the circuit. A bit hard to know what that's all about. And look at George Fury closing the gap under brakes as they go through Motorcraft. 5G made a lunge on the back of Johnson that time. This battle is a long way from over. Dunlop tyres on all three of these leading cars at the moment, all radial tyres but different compounds. There's Peter Williamson on the left-hand side of screen in the Toyota Supra. Grice with pressure on him from Seaton at the moment.
Has Johnson fired all of his artillery early? We'll have to wait and see. As they swing through the Shell Sweeper, it's still Larry Perkins, number 11, the NZ Connectors Commodore, clear of Dick Johnson. Not that clear. George Fury is in third spot. They haven't changed, and in fact, they're opening up a bit of a gap over Alan Grice, next in line with Glenn Seaton, then Jimmy Richards. We saw a hell of a scrap at Wanneroo Park, and I think we're seeing something that's equal to that here today at Adelaide International Raceway. George Fury's race is far from over. He's trying to hurry Dick along. Dick was very close to the tail of Perkins' car, just gone slightly off the boil in the last lap or so, and Fury wants to get back into business with Perkins again. Johnson trying to hang off until the very last moment and think about an inside approach to the turn through Shell. But everything they've been able to throw at Larry's been able to answer.
Further back, Jim Richards has been passed by Glenn Seaton. Young Glenn on the charge and looking for a pass on Alan Grice.
Drew Price there in the Toyota, getting out of everybody's way. Car number 35's calling to the pits, and that's Andrew Medicki. He's got problems with the OXO entry.
And Denny Holm is also in there, and Neville Crichton's Valvoline Ford Sierra. Bad luck for them. They're in with some problems. Once again, you'll see the trail for first back to sixth as they come down the front straight. Johnson sitting in behind Larry Perkins. And here comes Johnson again, trying to catch Perkins unaware and kid Seaton. But here's Johnson on the inside and takes the lead in round number 5. Crowd erupting here on the front straight at Adelaide International Raceway as the top banana leads the bunch.
Great driving from Dick Johnson. Through on the inside, a comfortable braking manoeuvre. So the new order is Johnson, then Perkins, then Fury, Grice, Seaton with lots of pressure on him at the moment from Glenn Seaton, then followed by Jim Richards, and Tony Longhurst still surviving, and that tyre problem seems to have subsided.
Nicky Johnson, car number 17, the Shell Ultra High. Cosworth Sierra comes off the speedball, and Adelaide in the crowd, all the arms in the air. Tricky Dicky leads yet another one. Led Lakeside, that was surrounded in controversy when he had a tickle with the turbo. But Dick's doing it nicely and getting onto some of the slower cars in front that he's coming up on, just to advise with a little courtesy blink of the lights. Just a couple of laps ago, we picked up an interesting little point that you might like to take a look at now on our Shell Ultra High replay. There's Dick Johnson. Maybe we're looking at what went on. There's Dick just pulling up behind Larry Perkins. And maybe that's where there was a clip. No, it's got me bluffed. Unless on the Sierras, there's a piece of fiberglass just on the leading edge of the rear wheel arches. It's like part of the flaring or the skirting of the car. Unless that piece has come off and we haven't been able to spot it, but it's curious. It seems to have come off Dick's car, but I can't find where it came from. We'll have another look as he goes past our commentary point. Dick, it's got me bluffed. Queensland's favourite son leads them across the line. Perkins in second, Fury is third, Grice is fourth, Seaton, then Richards. That's the order, and plenty of traffic to pass. They're coming up on Graham Hooley from Western Australia, and just ahead of him, Tony Noski also. There's Johnson on the inside of Graham Hooley. Graham moves to the outside, gives Dick a clean run, and Dick now up on Tony Noski, the Kalari Transport Commodore. And he'll probably catch him up through the S's coming down to the bowl, which he is doing just at this moment. As they come back onto the bowl, Noski moves to the outside, and Dick Johnson still leads them clear of Perkins. Through Motorcraft turn, there's the placings at the moment. Queensland's favourite son leads from Larry Perkins, and Farmer George is third. Meantime, in the pit area, Greg Hansford is in problems with the second of the Shell Ultra High Cosworth Sierras.
When he went past our commentary point, the car was really coughing and spluttering, and he pulled straight into the pits. Only been happening for about a lap or so. That's Neil Lowe in the front left-hand corner of the car, chief engineer. So Johnson leading the charge, out from behind Don Smith, the Oxo Sierra, Larry Perkins, then followed by George Fury, Glenn Seaton, having a look on the inside of Alan Grice. And the last time through, only 3.6 seconds separating the top 6 drivers. That's Jim right through to Dick leading the event. Amazing.
Very close. I was only remarking during the break to both Neil and Peter, rarely do you get a crook race from Adelaide International Raceway with the touring cars. Everyone is just a screamer. Last year's one was sensational. And of course this one has been outstanding. Perkins supplying a lot of the action, leading the race until passed by Dick Johnson, and now having to contain George Fury while all that's happening. Just behind them, Alan Grice is the next one, and Glenn Seaton has gone missing. No, Glenn Seaton about to come onto the bowl.
No, in fact he has. He's dropped out of that bunch.
Just coming onto the bowl, actually, Glenn Seaton. We'll pick him up for you. He's gone via the pits the old way that Peter Brock did. You'll see him entering there shortly. Just in behind that wall on the left-hand side. Meantime, Georgie Fury works away at Larry Perkins on the inside. The two of them going side by side. No room for error. Great driving, great mutual respect being shown by these two racers as they now work down towards the Bridgestone S's. So Georgie Fury has managed to pass Larry Perkins. That takes him to second. Dick Johnson, meantime, will lead the race. He comes onto the bowl at the moment, one of the Oxo Supercube cars. And right behind all this, of course, Alan Grice, carrying our Channel 7 race cam and the Bob J. T-Mart's Commodore. There's Perkins going through. There's the scrap, second, third, and Alan Grice is fourth.
Well, Grice has managed to close quite dramatically onto the back of Larry Perkins, and when you consider the gaps that we were looking at about 10 laps ago, we've got a completely rearranged race once more. It's Dick Johnson pulling well away, but this scrap for what I guess you could call second is raging. Perkins battling with Fury, and Grice just knocking on the door for somebody to make a mistake, but you don't find them too often from these guys.
Grice will cling onto him like a wet blanket. The vulnerability of the Nissan only shown so far in the demise of Glenn Seaton, and that's not really the best for Glenn, who of course went into today's race as the series leader from Jimmy Richards. George Fury bad luck last week, and bad luck falling upon Glenn Seaton this afternoon. Keep in mind the Dick Johnson team already down to 1 Sierra.
Well, Nissan have won 3 of the 4 races so far. Glenn was looking down the gun barrel of having to figure out how to drop his worst round. I know which one that'll be now.
I have an idea, you're right. When I said the Johnson team down to 1, I'll correct that because Greg Hansford is now back out onto the racetrack, so he has 2 still running.
Larry Perkins' form in the championship so far has been very, very good. He's been gradually improving his point score. A 2nd from Calder, a 7th at Simmons Plains, 4th up in Lakeside, 3rd last weekend. Battling amongst the high point scorers at the moment. Jim Richards, car number 3, 2nd in the championship, down 7 points on Glenn Seaton. That'll certainly be altered later this afternoon, and where he gets his big bonus is he constantly wins his class in the under 2.5 litre class. Points scored for that, together with their outright finishing positions. So Jim clinging very nicely in 4th position in a car that they said wouldn't work here, yet they said it would work well at Wanneroo.
It's remarkable, isn't it? This track is such a great equaliser, Neil. You've got 4 or 5 different makes of cars right in the hunt here at AIR.
There's only 2.8 seconds separating Dick from Jim, which is quite amazing.
How much closer do you need to get to the tail of Larry Perkins, NZ Connectors Commodores?
This is Wanneroo Park revisited.
Yes, it certainly is. So Gricey all over, or George Fury locking up a break as they came onto the bowl that time. Round 5 rages in Adelaide. Dick Johnson leads the Touring Car National Race from Georgie Fury, Larry Perkins. Tony Longhurst from Queensland running 6th on the road at the moment and trying to resist every attempt by Peter Brock to pass him. Tony's 30 years of age, comes from Brisbane, drives BMW M3. 1st in the 84 Alpha Sud Series at Amaroo Park, 1st in the 85 Castrol 500, 4th in the Touring Car Nationals of 86, and 1st in the 86 Better Break Series. Those stats courtesy of Nissan, no how. Tony Longhurst 4, clipped the wall, you'll recall, early in the race. Had smoke pouring off the rear tyre. That's all dissipated. And Peter Brock, it's taken Peter quite a number of laps to even get in touch with Tony Longhurst. So he's running 7th in the race at the moment, Peter perfect. And things not running so perfect for Peter. Car number 6. Of course, we're used to seeing him in 05, but the 05 car was destroyed at Lakeside. He has a new VL Commodore under construction at the moment. It shouldn't be too long before we see the Mobil Eon and Triple M Commodore, the new car, on the racetrack. Alan Grice, meantime, is making Larry Perkins work very, very hard for his money here today. And in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Commodore is Alan Grice. Good afternoon, Alan.
Hello, Mike.
Why is it that this place always produces such a great race?
Just the nature of the place, I guess.
You're working hard here with Larry Perkins. It's all closed up just a little bit in the last few laps.
Yeah, he's having a bit of trouble with his tyres. That's why I'm getting to him. But he's making it pretty hard, naturally.
Yes, well, we always remember your great race with Larry in round 4 last weekend at Wanneroo Park. Where do you think you might have the edge over him?
I've got him under brakes at the end of the straight, although see him, he can pull away under power there. I've got him under brakes at the end of the straight, and I'm better through the fast corner than him, Mike.
I know it's a hell of a thing to want to talk to you while you're busy there trying to haul in Larry Perkins. How does the car feel at this moment?
Pretty good. Everybody's having a bit of strife with their tyres. Mine are holding in pretty good. They're a bit greasy front and rear, but if you look at any of the cars, they're all doing the same thing. But, well, we're hanging in pretty good, I think.
No problems, engine, everything else running well?
Yeah, everything's fine. The brakes are standing up, the engine's, it's good. You can see on the temperature there properly.
You sure can. That's one of the advantages of being able to ride with you in the car if you put the viewers in the driving seat.
Yeah, she's only running about 90 degrees, which is pretty good. See, bye-bye Larry sort of thing. I'm using 7, that's the best that I can do. And I've got to rely on the brakes all the time. Hello, he's having trouble with his rears. That's a good sign.
It is for you. Now, can you keep the mirrors on the two of these for a while? He's probably had one look in the rear vision and thought this is Wanneroo revisited.
I left the rear vision mirror off this time.
All right, we'll let you get back on and concentrate, and thanks for the visit.
Okay, mate.
Alan Grice we were riding with as he zeroes in on the tail of Larry Perkins, NZ Connectors Commodore. Now, down on the inside goes Gricey. Press, 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 a wheel up on the curb. Whoa, just out of it at the last minute. These guys play for keeps.
That was very, very close. Incidentally, Murray Carter has called to the pits in the Netcom Nissan, and news just through that Peter Brock has gone past Tony Longhurst as well. Intriguing scrap between the two Commodore V8s. Interesting that Alan made the comment to us then via the race cam that Larry's car is able to pull away down the straight. In theory, at least, the newer VL car, which is the one we're looking out of at the moment, is supposed to rev higher and harder than the older model and produce just a fraction more horsepower. But Neil Burns, the chief engineer and chief engine builder for the NZ Commodore team, has got Larry's car really working well. And as Larry said to us a couple of times during the week, why bother updating when you can do it with last year's car and save yourself $150,000. There's Murray Carter in the Netcom entry, unfortunately out. It's good to have Murray back on the trail again, and the news is with his new sponsor, he'll be with us for the rest of the championship run.
It's good to see Murray back. The car looks a treat, and hopefully he can put together some strong placings in the latter half of the championship series.
He's back out of the pits again, so it must have only been a stop for a quick check.
The scrap that we saw at Wanneroo Park last week involving Larry Perkins and Gricey was sensational, and I have no doubt this is going to be equal to that. There's Graham Hurley from Western Australia getting the Tartars from the Commodore boys.
Never ceases to amaze me how well these fellas concentrate when they're just so close to each other, and whilst all this is going on, there's generally somebody else only within a 1 or 2 second gap. Listen to me just blapping on the throttle, trying to get power to the ground. That's the problem you have when you've got 440 horsepower and a very heavy motor car. It's so hard to convey just how hard these things are to drive. And look at Grice trying very hard to squeeze through. You'll notice that Larry takes a very wide entry.
Oh, almost on the wall. Checking out the mirrors. The man in the Chickadee Bob Jane car is still there. The other point we raised is that, of course, Graham Bailey, Chickadee man, who of course supplied the car for Gricey to run at Bathurst last year, and they won the race together, has been sticking with Gricey with support throughout the year, and that's great to see. Graham doesn't want to do any driving at the moment. Here's Graham Hurley into the pits for something's gone wrong there. The motor was off song the last couple of laps, called in to see if they can rectify it. But there's Perkins again, just locking a brake as he heads through the Bridgestone S's onto the Speedway Bowl, and now down the Yokohama back straight towards Motorcraft. Larry Perkins now, right behind him is Alan Grice. So close, Ace hit him. Perkins has gone sideways in the NZ Connectors Commodore, waltzes around the front of the car. Everything comes to an abrupt stop for a while, and away goes Grice. A little bit of contact between the two cars in this round of the Shell Ultra Touring Car title.
Well, what a sensation. The two of them were nose to tail last weekend, and they were rubbing mirrors. They've rubbed more than that this time. So Dick Johnson, flashing headlights, leads the pack away. The gap at last count was 3.3 seconds. And let's take a look at that replay once more with the compliments of Shell. They were down at the bottom part of the circuit. Grice plunging in under brakes. Did Larry lose it, or did Grice give him a little help? Make your own decision.
That's the hit there. It was 50-50. Wasn't much.
Look at Larry.
I'd say 90-10.
Whose way?
I don't think Larry'd be too excited.
No. That's how it all happened. Meanwhile, Dickie Johnson of Brisbane leads in the Shell Ultra High Cosworth. Comes down the back straight, and I'll tell you what, Dick is opening the gap all the time over George Fury by the look of it.
Is he ever? I'll check the gap again. It was 3.3 when I last stopped the clock.
George flat-spotted a tyre a few laps back. I don't think that'd help his cause.
Alan Grice, I think at this stage, would be third on the road in the Bob Jane T. Mart's Chickadee Commodore.
That's the all-time recovery.
Is it what? And fourth place held by Gentleman Richards.
Followed by Larry Perkins, who's now got Peter Brock hot on his hammer. The gap is now 5 seconds from this man here, George Fury, up to Dick Johnson, race leader. And as Pete mentioned, he had lots of problems with flat-spotting tyres coming into the left-hand approach to the bowl. But Pete, you ducked out for a moment to check on Glenn Seaton's problem. What was that?
Yeah, space-age communications. I footed it over to the pits. The simple but sad message is motor. Glenn Seaton has blown a motor, or a motor problem of some description. While I was down there too, Danny Holm is now a retiree. His problem was a turbocharger.
Well, that's certainly bad news for those two guys, but great performance here from Dick Johnson. How long has it been since we've had a Ford victory in Australian Touring Car Championship round? Dick Johnson looking pretty good for it at the moment.
Yes, I tend to think that the Sierra of Dick Johnson and even Jimmy Richards are the two guys that will fight this race out come lap 60.
Well, the battle for the minor placings is a long way from over at this stage as well, because Brock isn't too far away from Larry Perkins, and Gricey's just done the best recovery of all time to get out of all that, although his car didn't go round. And you'll notice when we had the Shell replay up before, he virtually was able to select first gear and just go again. Larry took a little longer just to get things sorted out, and probably just to get a few expletives out and carry on from there. Thank goodness Larry didn't have race cam. Good pictures, bad audio. So the order at this stage of the game, we have Dick Johnson leading from George Fury, and then further back in third place coming onto the bowl is Alan Grice in car number 2. There he is. He's just passed Peter Williamson in car number 77, the Toyota Supra. And then a fairly comfortable gap back to Jim Richards, car number 3. This championship just continues to be wiped clean, and we start all over again. There's no common denominators. Everybody's had a bit of a chance at having a pole or a win. And Alan Grice, you had some drama down the bottom of the straight. Give us your version.
You noticed that, Mike, did you?
Oh, just a bit, that's all. I mean, what would you put that one down to?
As you could see, the previous 10 times or so, Larry was having trouble with his rear brakes, and I was getting in a lot deeper than him. And on that occasion, my car was sliding all 4 wheels. He was having more rear brake trouble, and he stopped earlier than I thought he would, but my car was already sliding. If I'd not... just gets a bit greasy here.
Yep, go for it.
If I just stayed on and tried to stop my car and brake my car, I would have gone into him much, much harder, because my car was already sliding and we both would have been over in that wall. As it was, I still had some control and I was able to stay off him. Well, I'm not real sure. I guess these Yokohamas are gripping pretty well for me to be able to not avoid hitting him right in the eyeballs.
Well, you think Larry will see it all that way?
Well, Larry's never happy after a race. He gets this sort of blue haze that comes down.
While we're talking, Alan, we just got a shot of one of the JPS BMWs coming into the pits, and in fact it's Tony Longhurst with smoke pouring off the tyre, arm out to tell Curly Gardner and the boys need some more rubber. Sorry to interrupt our little discussion, Bob.
No, it doesn't surprise me all that much, because it's obvious that the reason Jim has slipped back from me And he's just coming into the straight now. He's a long way back.
Yeah.
Obviously, the reason that's happened is his tyres are going away. So the old Yokohamas are doing a good job today.
They certainly are. Thanks for the plug. We'll come back and visit with you later.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you, my man, Alan Grice. Meantime, a little bit of panel beating going on.
Oh no, they've dropped the car on the disc. They've actually released the air hose. They don't have a left rear tyre on there. This is sloppy pit work, and Frank Gardner won't be a happy man. The cardinal sin to drop a car before you've been cleared by the crew. Normally the crewman stands up, raises his hands in the air. Oh, there'll be some teeth gnashing going on there. Gricey's story sounded a bit like the bloke whose chin fell on your fist, doesn't it?
Yep. There's Murray Carter's Netcom Nissan Skyline.
He spun off about 3 laps ago down onto the entrance to the bowl. It's a pretty unusual sort of a spot to be parked.
Yes, he had a brake lock-up of some description and smoke pouring off it as parked off there. Meanwhile, Tricky Dicky still leads it. Will today be the day? And both you gentlemen carry more notes than Gulliver had travels. When was the last touring car race for a championship that Dick Johnson won? Come on.
Next question.
No, you're the experts.
I haven't got my buzzer with me.
Well, it's
Sorry, Wilbur, you're
the
out.
last touring car race, or championship touring car race.
Yep.
The last touring car race would have been
Adelaide Grand Prix 1985.
No, you're not off the hook. We're talking about the touring car championship round. It's been ages. But I tell you what, there won't be a happier guy. I'll tell you what, our Queensland viewers will be delighted if this man can finally crack it for one. He's tried for so long with the Mustang, almost had Lakeside wrapped up, all the troubles with the tickling of the turbo, and today he leads it and is leading it comfortably. Everything is falling into place for Queensland's Dick Johnson. Let's check the placings at the moment. Tricky Dicky, go get him, boy. George Fury is second and Gracey is third. Taking time out to follow Cole Bond in the Caltex Alpha, number 75, running 8th at the moment, 7th I should say, and performances getting better each outing for Colin Bond and the Caltex Alpha team. Should be very pleasing to Enrico Zanarini and all the folk at Caltex who have backed Colin Bond. New car, started the season off really feeling the pinch a little, but that have developed in association with the Bonica boys of Melbourne, and the car is just getting more competitive in each outing.
Bondi had the boost well and truly boogieing in practice yesterday in the first session and was up amongst the top 4 runners. But then they had a problem. They changed their race engine between sessions and they found that it wouldn't take any water. They couldn't get water to run through the system. So they've had to go with a more conservative boost package today because it's an older engine and it's virtually been cobbled out of parts or remnants of the Wanneroo Escapade. But as you say, quite rightly, Mike, the good news with this car is that it is coming together and we're getting more and more brands involved in the battle.
Well, I think when you consider they have 10 cars inside 1 second, that is just sensational stuff. And that's happened here today in Adelaide.
There's Brocky. He's in 4th position at the moment. Pretty good recovery from him. Greg Hansford to the pits for the 2nd time. And Brock making the best of some other guys' misfortune. Well, Hansford has called in for tyres this time. It doesn't appear to be a misfire, which was the drama in that first stop. And it's a pretty slow old stop. They certainly weren't ready for something like that, although most of the guys said that their tyres would be marginal by the end of 60 laps.
Well, we don't want to Jonah Dick, but this could be a portent of things to come, perhaps.
Not too many laps left.
So 5. About 5 or so laps remain. And just when we thought that Dick had Lakeside wired, you'll recall, turbo played up and he was into the pits. But at the moment, Brocky running back there and about 4th on the road.
Well, the gap between our leader Dick Johnson and George Fury in second is 7.3 seconds. And then it's another pretty healthy gap from George back to Gricey. Gricey still in 3rd, 2.4 seconds in fact. And then the split back to Brock as he comes down the back towards the motorcraft turn into the bowl. We've got the watch running at the moment. It's actually a country mile. It's about half the actual size of the bowl. But nevertheless, it's points for Brock and the mobile team, and it's 13.9 seconds.
And Jim certainly looks as if he struck some tyre problem. He's dropped down a couple of seconds a lap.
Yeah, he certainly has, which is a surprise because it's the lightest car in the field other than the real small Geminis and what have you, and just over or a tad over 960 kilograms. It shouldn't really be wearing its tyres out, although I've said it before and I've had discussions or debate on it, but the BMW constantly looks to me as though it's just a fraction tail heavy. You've driven the car, Pete. What's it like?
Oh, it's a beautifully balanced car. I know what you mean when you say it does appear tail happy, but I think it's got, what, 300 odd horsepower now, and in that weight package, it's got a great power to weight ratio and it gets the tail out very, very easily.
So does Brocky's car, and he's working hard at the wheel at the moment in 4th position. Yeah, certainly not having a go at Frank or the boys. They've just engineered one of the prettiest and best handling and nicest cars you'll ever see, but it just does seem to have a slight oversteer tendency, and I just wonder whether that cooks their tyres up.
Alan Moffat was telling me during the week before he took off back to Europe that there is little resemblance between what you're seeing of the M3s in Australia and the M3s in Europe. He said that they're almost, they look like they're powered with 350 V8 Chevys the way they accelerate over there. Here's the man who leads round 5 of the Shell Ultra Nationals, Queensland's Dick Johnson. What a way to plug the sponsor. He carries the tournament sponsors' logos over his car, and he steams onto the front straight here at Adelaide International Raceway. I'll tell you what is becoming interesting, and you'll notice shortly. George Fury is running second on the road, but getting closer to Fury is Grice. There's Johnson as he comes down the front straight into the right-hander. Fury still in second spot, and Alan Grice third. Peter Brock is fourth, but a long way behind the tail of Grice. Then Jim Richards in 5th spot. Larry Perkins is 6th. And Greg Hansford coming back into the pits again as team leader. Dick Johnson comes through the Bridgestone S's, now back onto the Super Bowl once again. Checkered flag ready to come out for Dick Johnson. Setting him up. The last corner comes up. Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 years, the headlights are ablaze. Johnson has won a round of the Touring Car Nationals. He takes round 5 of the Shell Ultra Nationals today at Adelaide Raceway. Look at the dice per second in the background. George Fury in the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline, and Alan Grice nose to tail across the line. He's finally done it. The crowd has erupted at Adelaide Raceway for Queensland's favourite son, Dick Johnson, the winner of round 5 in the nifty little Shell Ultra High Cosworth. Let's convince you of the placing. Dick Johnson wins round 5. George Fury takes second. Gricey picks up third.
Congratulations, a great drive. A long time coming, mate.
Thanks, Neil. It has been a long time, and I think the last race we won was in Adelaide as well. As a matter of fact, the last 2 have been in Adelaide. So, yeah, we've been waiting a long time for this, and I'm just happy for the boys and for Shell and for Motorcraft and Palmer Tube Mills and all the people that help us. It's been a long time coming, but I think we're on the road to success now.
Any tough moments along the way?
Not really. I think, you know, I had a really trouble-free run, and I just tried to look after my tyres because that's the thing that really counts around here. I had a bit of a vibration in the car, but it obviously didn't worry it.
Well, to make the presentation, John Rowe from Shell, Retail Manager. Congratulate Dick, please, John.
Dick, congratulations from Shell Ultra to the high-tech racing team. Very well done, mate. A long time between drinks.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Now, the man who finished second, who also did a splendid job, was George Fury. He's lurking down there at the moment. If George and Alan would like to come up. Congratulations, George. It was a fine drive, but there really wasn't too much you could do about Dickie today.
No, Dickie went like a skun cat, or a skun Dick. Commiserations to Glenn for not finishing. I mean, it's super bad luck for him, but congratulations to Dick, and geez, it was close towards the end. I mean, my left front tyre's right on the canvas, and I couldn't go any faster, and Grice was catching us. I think I couldn't have held him out for another lap.
What do you think it is about this track? We had 10 cars all within a second of one another after qualifying, and it's a place where horsepower is supposed to reign supreme and people disappear, but that didn't happen again.
No, I don't know why, Neil, but I mean, I'm glad that we've got a finish anyway, and And congratulations again to Grice and Dick.
Well done, George. Alan Grice. That was a tough one, mate. You really did it hard.
Yeah, it was a bit that way, but the track was very, very greasy and slidey, and I think everybody's tyres were, you know, understeering and oversteering, and everybody was having a nice old slide around.
Now, before you catch up with me next week and start saying, hang on, Crompton, what did you say? I suggested your description was a bit like the bloke whose chin lobbed on someone's fist. Is that how it was or not?
Well, we were both locked up in the rear under brakes through that fast corner, and anybody that jumps on the brakes in that situation just puts both people into the wall. You know, it's all that exactly that's happened before. You jump on the brakes, you lose your own control of your own car, hit the other one very hard, and then you're both in the wall. So you don't do that.
Okay, Dick Johnson victorious today. Congratulations, and George Fury and Alan Grice. They've all done a great job. Adelaide's done it again. We'll look forward to having your company in 2 weeks' time for more 7 Motorsport.